So I did a video a few months back, and I happened to be strolling through South London, Croydon to be exact, and it was a response to some statements that were made by a couple of people, Nigel Farage and also another Conservative politician. Now, what they were saying was they happened to be in a part of the country, spent I don't know how long, an hour or so, and is walking through the area and they didn't hear anybody speaking English. Now, I know this might be possible in some places and spaces, but I was pretty doubtful of their statement. So I thought, let me do a little bit of a DIY stroll through somewhere near to my area, which is quite cosmopolitan, fairly mixed group of people, your average London High Street, and see how many English speakers I came across. And it wasn't sort of a groundbreaking experience, it was pretty generic and general. Yeah, I heard some accents, a few different languages, but on the whole part, people were speaking English, which is what I pretty much expected. Now, I reckon you could be strolling through any part of London and you'll probably have the same experience. So, if you're a politician or Nigel Farage, maybe your perception, your hearing and your vision is slightly filtered. That's the only conclusion I can come to, because yeah, I think it's a little bit wild to say that in 2026, in London at least, that you're going to be in any generally mixed area and you ain't going to hear people, the majority, speaking English, because this is a majority English speaking country. Yes, it is multicultural. Yes, you have natives from many parts of the world and immigrants, etc., but it's still a generally predominantly English speaking country. So anyway, what prompted me to do this video today is, I think it's something I heard James O'Brien talking about on LBC today, and also the Jim Ratcliffe colonial comments. Now I say colonial because that's the word that most people have wrapped themselves around to focus the controversy on. I get it. You know, when I hear colonial, it makes me think of the Great British Empire of yesterday, Rule Britannia, Britain rules the waves, and all of that jazzy sort of narrative. And yeah, it just takes me back to the history that this country and many other European Western countries are built on. The fact that many of them were colonial empires, and they built their power, strength, and amassed their fortunes on the fact that they were able to colonize a lot of countries. And this is the funny twist, because I'm not saying it justifies the state of immigration in the UK today, but if you look at the bigger, broader historical picture, I mean, we are living in a country that, as I said, it made its fortune. Many big businesses that still trade today, they made their fortunes, they made their money, they established themselves in the beginnings on the colonial twisted rules and structures that allowed one country to pretty much have full control over the assets and resources of another country and ship a lot of that stuff offshore back home to their own spot and benefit from it. Now, I had this conversation yesterday with somebody, and it was about Nigeria as an example, and we was looking at, I think it started off as we was talking about Burkina Faso, and then we skirted over to Nigeria, and then we referenced the African continent in general. Now, what it was, yeah, we kind of, I brought this up. I was saying that if you look at the colonial relationship with places like India, Pakistan, certain parts of Asia, what the British appeared to have done is they built infrastructures within the countries like transport, train networks, like in India, for example. So one part of the country could be connected with the other part of the country. Now, this benefited the colonial empire in many ways. Yeah, they could move troops from one side to the other, but above all, I mean, the security of the troops was only really there for the industry. They was able to shift products, merchandise, sugar, tea, this, that and the other, people in some cases, from A to Z quite comfortably, and to the coastal cities and towns, and thus offshore back to Europe and the UK and other parts of the world to be sold. So the thing that I was questioning is how the approach was different for some of these other colonial countries compared to the African countries, because from what I'm aware of, they didn't go as far as or take the time to or choose to build any kind of transport infrastructure. And I'll use Nigeria as a reference. Lagos, based on I don't know if it's originally a type of lagoon type geography, but what they did is they just completely moved resources by ship from the continent back to Europe, and they didn't really, as far as I know, invest in any kind of transport infrastructure like they did in parts of Asia, India, which was to be of benefit to the actual indigenous populations when post-World War II, in many cases, as late as the 60s and beyond for many countries, when some of these countries eventually got what you could describe as their independence, but I wouldn't call it complete independence, because up to today, up to now, the West still has a hold on these said countries. Now, what I would say, sort of bringing it back round to where I began, one moment please. Excuse me. Yeah, bringing it back round to where I began the conversation and the this video, in terms of the conversation was based around migration, immigration, ethnicity, and the big C word, coined and utilized by Jim Ratcliffe himself, colonialization. So I'm tying this in to the recent arguments about how this country is changing, how the communities are changing, how the culture is changing, how the religion is changing, how this and that is changing, how this has been hijacked, how that has been hijacked. I don't really look at it that way myself, but this is what I've been hearing for quite some time. You can look, you can look at anything, or rather, you start off from the sonic wavelength. You can hear, traffic noises, everyday sounds of living taking place on the urban high street. And while you can listen, you can also hear, possibly, voices, accents, languages, conversation. And predominantly, I still come back to this, wherever I walk on the urban London high street, I predominantly hear the English language clearly being spoken by the vast majority of pedestrians and passers-by. Now, I'm not talking about somewhere like Brick Lane or certain parts of East London, veering on the Whitechapel zone, where there's a predominantly or large population of people from the I think it's East Asia part of the world, part of the globe, Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, and you are going to hear a lot of those dialects being spoken. And you are going to see a lot of people from that ethnicity. Although, at the same time, I won't go as far as saying what some of the politicians like Nigel Farage have said, that you don't hear no English being spoken. Now, this whole cultural thing has gone to the point where I heard on LBC James O'Brien referencing one of the dudes, political dudes, who lives in an upmarket area in London, saying he was walking about around 8 o'clock in the evening. He saw some dude approaching him who looked, James O'Brien, or the guy, it wasn't James O'Brien who was interviewing him. The guy said, well, what was the concern? Did he look threatening? He said the guy looked tired. And for that reason, he felt afraid, in fear of what? Not to the extent that he reported the crime or called for assistance or anything, but to the extent that he thought he could reference it on a national radio station interview to highlight how there's some kind of ethnic takeover or threatening presence on these London streets. I just want to stop by this particular location while I'm here. Just take a moment to segue. This is the David Barry mural in Brixton. Very nice mural, well put together. When he passed away, there was a ton of people here, loads of flowers and stuff, but it's been here ever since. So David Barry, a UK national global legend, and I think he has quite a history with this part of the area. What does that say? Let me read it out. I won't sidetrack for too long, but just while I'm here and taking the time. Oh no, love, you're not alone. You're watching yourself, but you're too unfair. You got your head all tucked up, but if I could only make you care, I love you. Starman, put anger, red shoes for me, put from Durham. Oh, well, I think that's, lots of people at the time expressed their feelings and stuff. People have written little things here and little things there in tribute to the legend himself, David Barry. So, that's just, I think that was probably a lyric from one of his songs. So, without further ado, we'll continue on. And we happen to be in Brixton today, South London, for my walkabout. Just on the off chance. So what it is, I'm trying to say now, and even if you take like a glance, like a little brief glance of the kind of people you might happen to see on these said streets here in Brixton, you see a wide mix of people, wide range of people, what I would call an ethnic mix, one that is quite standard and typical for London, South London, North London, even East London, West London. So, might be a little bit different in the leafier urban, non-urban, greener areas where it's probably a bit more Caucasian, you could say, more white, less brown. Although, even those parts of London are mixed, and you're definitely going to hear, if Farage went to somewhere like Epsom or, let me see, Welwyn Garden City or parts of Harrow, I don't think they'll have that excuse to say, oh, they were walking around for an hour and didn't even see another white face, or they didn't hear anyone speaking English. You can hardly say that about South London, least alone some of these more suburban spaces. So I would just like you to sort of work this one out for yourself in the little time you've taken to watch this video, and just take a pause and see what you can hear. I'll shut up for a minute. Excuse me again. Alright, I've been in the area for at least 10-20 minutes, and I've heard two people speaking other languages. I think East African, can't say which country, and probably West African. Other than that, it's been English. Okay, so somebody just passed me, definitely not a brown person, speaking some European language or something else, but again,
You're in. That's that.
the thing about Farage and some of these politicians and others who've made statements and billionaires, it's like a kind of a stealth kind of a dig or point towards brown people, even though they're not actually outright stating that. When they start hitting this, country's being colonized. How's the country being colonized? What's the central organized group or power that is taking over and colonizing the country, like Rule Britannia, Great Britain did once upon a time when it ruled the waves and was probably one of the most powerful, if not the richest countries in Europe. That's colonialization. When they're in charge, take control and, call in the shots, shall we say. It's like going into somebody's home, taking over, and you tell them what to do. You got South Africa. That's colonialization from both the British and I think the Dutch at one point. And that went on right through to modern times. That's colonialization. I can't see anything like that happening over here in the UK. So it's a strange kind of comment, I think, to try and connect the two things. So, right, while I'm over this other part of Brixton now, I'll just show you a little glimpse of the Ritz, being here for a lifetime, or lifetimes. I mean, might as well take the opportunity to give you a little bit of a toury tour in some of the locations. And over there is Brixton Town Hall. So, coming back to this language thing, I want to give you as much as an opportunity as I can to listen and glance around, to the left and to the right, or wherever you can see a gap around my frame, at the people you're seeing in this particular area. And yes, it is mixed, but language-wise, that wasn't a good move. I won't recommend that to anybody when crossing roads, wherever you might be in town. So I had to do a little rewind maneuver on that. So anyway, I'm heading over that side of town, that side of the road. And apart from the pigeons, we'll see what sounds we can hear. Right, I made it this far safely. There's a bit of a dumb move I made earlier. Again, won't recommend that to anybody. Please be safe when you're walking about and commuting in town. I won't advise jumping into the road before you're sure that there's no fast cars coming. So, let you have a little glance back there for a moment. Listen to that. The bells almost sound like Big Ben, but it's not. It's the bells of Brixton. So, this Jim Ratcliffe statement or choice of words that's now caused so much controversy, he did have to, I won't say dial it back. I think he clarified what his intent was by using that word, colonialization, when describing his concerns for the UK. And Nigel Farage coming out and backing his choice of, well, not necessarily choice of words, but let's say he agreed in the most part with what Jim Ratcliffe had to say about Britain being colonialised. I just think, another thing, so, which you probably, if you follow the story, it's been pointed out quite frequently, the fact that the said billionaire, Jim Ratcliffe, one of the richest men in the UK, owns one of the two Manchester football teams. Now, I'm not saying that has a bearing on anything, but what I'm coming to is the point that you might have heard, the fact that he himself doesn't currently live in the UK, reside in the UK, and pay taxes in the UK. So in terms of contributing to the place that he says is being taken over, overrun, and colonized by non-indigenous persons, I mean, some of those persons, either they become citizens and they pay tax, or they pay tax anyway while they're still holding their immigrant status, and it brings in part of the national GDP. So Jim Ratcliffe, I'm not saying he doesn't employ thousands of people and what's not, you know, he chooses to live offshore in another country, Monaco to be specific, different principality, where the primary reason why most super rich people move to Monaco is to avoid having to pay the said taxes that everybody else has to pay, by choice or otherwise. So it doesn't sort of remove his entitlement to comment and make air his point of view on what he thinks is going on in the country. But I think it's kind of rich, for want of a better word, him being a billionaire and such. I think it's kind of rich, him verbally kicking off on the Sky News interview, and labelling Great Britain and UK as a country that's been overrun and I added in the overrun bit, but colonized. And even if that was the case, I will say, as some have said in the past, chickens coming home to roost. Now, I'm not saying it's something to celebrate, but if you've built, you've based this pavement, this ground, this, these old buildings and all the riches that have been, the foundation of what this country is based on, I'll show you a bit more of the, physical structures. I do like that about the UK, is some of the real old buildings. So, excuse me, if you base that on, I'll throw in an extra wild card, the slavery story. Now, I'm not going to dive into that, but yeah, that's part of the history and how the money came about. If you take all of that into consideration, and the fact that England colonialised so many other countries and benefited from it to date, pre-World War II, when it kind of, the whole game changed, those wars cost the nation of Britain so much that, I think they just only finished paying off the bill to US in recent years. So yeah, it was over. And all these other countries that fought for Great Britain, as they believed the king and queen were their bona fide masters of a kind. It all kind of came to a crashing halt to a degree after World War II, and a lot of people were invited to said places, even like South London and Brixton and other parts of this country, to help rebuild the country, because as far as the manpower goes, literally a lot of men, population wise, were lost during the period of 39 to 1945, and they needed fresh blood, and they turned to their Commonwealth and colonialised countries for support, and invited a lot of people over. You've got the Windrush era, you've got decades that preceded, where people were invited over here to, drive the buses, run the underground, nurses. My parents, I wouldn't be here but for the fact, probably in this country, not on the planet, who knows, I could have been born somewhere else. But my parents came here as nurses, as doctors, well, not doctors, as nurses, and they were, I guess invited over. So as many people, brown people from the Caribbean and Africa, were invited over here to work in the NHS. So there you go. So that's I wouldn't call that colonizing the place. You got first, second, third plus generations here, from those first people who was invited and came over in the 50s, 60s, 70s, etc. So I don't know if Jim Ratcliffe includes those people when he says the country has been colonialised. And I've heard a lot of other statements from, you know, even some of the US administration, you know, and even Elon Musk, you know, like he's kind of expressed his view. Some of the statements are quite outrageous, what they think is going on here. The country is being run by Sharia law in some places. Nah. The mayor is controlled by some kind of Muslim cabal. Nah. And outrageous things like that. And I mean, if you having a fair kind of a debate about these matters, I always think when you have to add fiction and really over egg the narrative, I think, yeah, you're not really standing on solid footing, shall we say. So yeah, this colonial assertion, strange one, and it's gonna be spoken about, it's gonna be discussed, debated, and some are gonna defend it, some are even gonna try and show proof and evidence to back it up, but it's a very weak argument, I do believe. Yes, problem with immigration, that problem has been passed on from administration to administration. Conservatives, Labour, none of them have really come up with a workable, acceptable solution that most of the population are happy with. But I just think it's low-hanging fruit. It's so easy to just, when things get a certain way, turn and blame the immigrants. When you really look into it, it's people like the billionaires, the super rich, the industry owners. They're the shot callers. They're the ones who determine how well our economy is doing, and you know who gets the jobs and who gets what in their pocket. So I don't think it's a bunch of you know, people coming over on boats. Yes, it does cost the government money. It does cost the welfare state money. Yes, it does cost something. But to the extent to say that that's determining the outcome of, you know, how this nation grows, and that it's been hijacked and colonialized, I find it very difficult to get the truth out of that particular statement. So I'm going to pause again, give it a moment where you can listen out, see what dialects, what languages you hear, if any. You'll probably hear a lot of traffic, but I don't think you're going to hear anything other than a lot of English speaking people. So let's go. When we're told, oh, walk down London, and I could hear not one English speaking person, I can hardly hear anything more than traffic myself, and I'm standing right here anyway, so unless you're in a bar or enclosed space, or you know, real close proximity to a bunch of people, you don't really hear much. I can definitely hear a bit of music. Nice tune. Oh yes, I think I know that artist. Definite classic. Bit of a sidetrack, but it's relevant. So, don't want to get a copyright strike with that lovely tune that's playing in the background. I think I'm about ready to sign out. And I hope I've made my point, or at least given you food for thought with this colonization thing. Excuse my my English is usually okay, but certain words I find a little bit, I gotta do do a recap on. So this colonization accusation from Jim Ratcliffe, I think he probably could have got his point across using a different selection or choice of words. It's my final say. Only Retier in South London, Brixton today on the subject, representing as per usual CornerSpeak. Be good, be safe, be creative. For now, enjoy the rest of your day. I'm out. Just a little extra, little addition here. Don't forget to leave your comments in the comment section. I always want to hear what you got to say. And if you haven't yet subscribed, hit the bell icon. Ding. Subscribe to the channel. And before I bounce, if you are in any difficulties, this is the video sponsor I'm referring to. Today's video sponsor, smalldebts.co.uk. If you have any financial issues, you need somebody to represent you online, you've been scammed, you've got money that you need repatriated to your account, or you need somebody to help you with your payroll aspects of your small or large business, do the email campaign, anything along those lines, get in touch with them. Their information will be in the description. smalldebts.co.uk. Check them out.
Struggling to get your security deposit back or dealing with unfair charges? At Small Debts, our tenant advocate service fights to get your money back. No stress, no hassle. Take control today. Visit smalldebts.co.uk and start your case now. Have you been unfairly charged or conned by a company? At Small Debts, no company is too big and no debt too small. Small Debts is here to help.
Let us know what your opinion is on Sir Jim Ratcliffe's view on the UK being colonialised, and any other things that you think are relevant and related you want to drop in the chat. People at the community here at CornerSpeak, support us if you can. Definitely hit that bell if you haven't yet subscribed, and we catch up with you soon. We're out.